a damning report into child sexual exploitation in Rochdale has revealed the extent senior police in Greater Manchester and council bosses failed young girls in their community and the serious concerns that remain there, with 96 men still deemed a potential risk to children. The independent review investigated cases from 2004 to 2013 and found it's probable that at least 74 children were sexually exploited during that period. And in 48 of those instances, there were serious failures from the authorities to protect children from paedophile grooming gangs. And as far as justice is concerned, 9 men who ran a child sexual exploitation ring were jailed in 2012, while further investigations have led to convictions of another 42 men. But it's clearly not the end of the problem. Former Greater Manchester police detective and now runner of her own foundation, Maggie Oliver, has for a long time been shining a light on the force's failures in this area. She joins me now. Maggie, really appreciate your time. I know you've had a very, very busy day. I've been following you and your social media posts today. You were giving press conferences today as well. I mean, it's a shocking report. Many people are saying, well, once again, we're being told that things should have been done that weren't done. Once again, we're hearing that there's still problems going on. There's still lots of people out there who have done harm to children and who have not been punished for it in any way, shape or form. We also know there are at least 3 individuals who've done time in prison who should have been deported, who are still walking the streets.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I mean, you and I have spoken about this many times, but I think what I want to really stress is that I've been shouting about this for 12 years.
Yeah.
It's been 12 years of my life to get this report published, which actually corroborates every single word of what I've been saying for 12 years. And the real scandal is that the organisations, the police, social services, the councils, they want to prevent reputational damage. They want to pretend that these things don't go on. And it is only when they face somebody like me who will not give up that finally the lid is lifted and they have to acknowledge some of the truth or the failures that they are responsible for. But without somebody like me, they all gang together and they protect the organisation. And it's the children themselves and children today who are being failed. And what I wanted to say this morning and make it very clear was that this report, yes, focuses on the past. And the Chief Constable was insistent that things are much better. You know, this is a historical case. I want to say, because of my work with my charity now, which is not funded by anybody like the police, we are independent, funded by the public. Because of our work, we are helping and advocating and supporting victims today who are experiencing the same neglect, the same silencing of their voices. Just like Amber was criminalised and portrayed as some kind of a madam when she was being horrendously raped at the age of 15. We today have many victims who are being criminalised themselves, who are being blamed, who are being silenced. You know, gaslighting. And what we have is a police complaint system that is completely unfit for purpose. When they complain, it's actually the police themselves that investigate that complaint. And if it goes to the IOPC, the Independent Office for Police Conduct, actually, they don't even look at what's gone on. They don't look at the complaint. It goes straight back to the police force about whom they are complaining. So everybody is able to continue this neglect and nobody is held accountable. To this day, Mike, you know of all the towns where these cases have happened: Rochdale, Rotherham, Telford, Oxford, Huddersfield, so many places, thousands of children. And yet not one senior officer has been held to account. This report, just like the Augusta report, officially finds that these cases were closed and done inadequately, unlawfully, I would say, because senior leaders would not put resources into investigating them. And that is a serious neglect of duty. It is misconduct in a public office. So why do we not have any senior officials who are being held to account? This report, and I know I'm going on, but there's so much to say.
So much.
This report makes it very clear that many of the officers, senior officers, approached by the review team to tell them to share their stories of what happened, refused to be interviewed. And they do not engage with these inquiries. And I draw parallels with the drama that's all over the media at the moment. You know, the one into the post office where you had a
Yes.
whistleblower who brought it into the public arena. I have been banging that drum for 12 years, Mike. And I would say that the failures and the neglect and the corruption that I have seen in those 12 years from the agencies parallels what I have seen in the drama that I have now seen about the post office. And it took one person, the guy I think from Fujitsu, who spoke the truth, because until he gave up his life to expose what was going on, the post office insisted that these people were criminals. The police insist that they are doing a proper job now, and I can tell you that they are not. And I want to see radical overhauls of the system, of the police complaint system. And I want to see chief constables calling out for what it is: a lack of resources, a lack of prioritizing. They need better trained officers, more experience, more numbers, more money. There's so many things that this report exposes.
Yes.
And I'd like the media
more
to
motivation,
keep a
Maggie, as
spotlight
well,
on it.
because looking at what they said today and how they reacted to it, let's just get a look at the response from Greater Manchester Police and Mayor Andy Burnham now.
I am so sorry that your childhoods were so irretrievably blighted and scarred with such profound consequences. One of the primary responsibilities of the police is to protect the vulnerable from the cruel and the predatory. And in this regard, we failed you.
It is only by facing up fully and unflinchingly to what happened in all of its horrifying detail that we can be sure of bringing about the whole system culture change that is necessary on this critically important issue.
Now, they say we failed you, Maggie, but as you say, and you've said this to me many times, it's still going on. There is no way that it's stopped. There is no way that, despite what Burnham and the Manchester Police say, you know, the people who were involved in it have all left office. They're no longer in charge. They're no longer able to harm these poor young women. But let's face it, part of the reason why they failed was because they were being told quite often by local councillors who were friends with some of these horrible paedophiles not to go after them, right?
That is part of the story. I mean, Stephen Watson there, the chief constable now, I went to his predecessor, Peter Foy, in 2011, and I begged him to do something about this. He said, if lessons have to be learned, we will learn them. I'm sorry, an apology 12 years later, when those people at the top of Greater Manchester Police knew full well what was going on, is just not good enough. Saying sorry doesn't put right all those years when these children have been failed, when Amber has been portrayed as some kind of a wicked madam who is recruiting children, when in fact this report makes it very clear, and I knew back then, she was a child victim of horrendous abuse, rapes over a period of years, threatened at gunpoint, threatened at knife point, and yet the Crown Prosecution Service chose, because they needed her evidence in court a year after they dropped her, to put her on the indictment as an abuser. That is just not what is right. It is wrong. It is immoral. It is unethical. It is not what police are meant to do. But I've seen through my journey that they will use any tool at their disposal to silence anybody who challenges them. I was written off as a woman who became too emotionally involved by Peter Foy, who said he'd met me on many occasions. You know, I had to fight, you know, to challenge Mr. Watson today when he said, basically implied that we were constantly speaking to each other. He's not spoke to me for 2 years. Right. I've heard all these things so many times. And if I had £1 for every time I have said that children are being failed, that the system is failing them, I would be a millionaire. These are systemic failures, and we need a radical overhaul of the police complaints procedure, of the way victims are treated, of the training of officers. We need organisations like the Maggie Oliver Foundation to come in and stand alongside victims as they travel through the system. As it is now, they get one officer, then another one next week, and then another one, and they disengage because they are re-traumatised every single time. This is a national scandal, and this is the latest report in a whole long line. How many more before they take action? Words are easy, Mike. You know, this is another soundbite. It's gaslighting.
Yeah.
Things have not changed. And I could give you, you know, a dozen, 100 victims who are being failed today throughout the country, not just in Rochdale.
Right, and I'm told there's another 29 individuals who are facing trial, but they won't face trial for any of this and these horrible crimes that they've been committing for years until 2025. So we've got to wait another year before even a trial begins. I mean, it's outrageous how long it's taking, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it really is. And those children were known to Greater Manchester Police almost 20 years ago.
Right.
You know, the last report was Operation Augusta in 2005, which I also worked on. And that's one of the cases I've been shouting out about. That case has now been reopened after the independent review reported in 2020 that once again, that job had been closed down because senior officers would not put resources in. That has been reopened. They were forced to reopen that case as Operation Green Jacket. And that is now over 4 years since that job started. And still, those children from 20 years ago are now being failed yet again. No charges have come. No, the case is still under investigation. Victims are being failed yet again. How many more bites of the cherry do they need? They need to listen to victims. They need to listen to people like me I have nothing to gain, Mike. I am not telling lies. I never was. These reports prove that. I am not telling lies now. You know that this is still going on. And it isn't actually just victims of these grooming gangs. It is all victims of violence against women and girls. There is a lack of care, of compassion, of dealing with them properly. And we need a system that works. We need accountability of senior officers who have failed. And we need a police complaints system that is fit for purpose and that doesn't take 20 years to kick in. And then we just get an apology. That is not good enough. And it just won't wash with the British public anymore.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Maggie, listen, thank you again for all the brilliant work that you've done, and I know how selfless you are about it all, and I really take my hat off to you. And there's still a lot to do, isn't there? Because we're still going to have to fight these people tooth and nail for the next 10 years by the looks of it.
Yeah, I think that the thing is, though, Mike, you know, I was one lone voice. I think the country now is aware because of people like you shining a spotlight, and I have a fantastic team alongside me at the foundation now. 5 members of staff, 30 volunteers, a charity funded by the public. But that is so important because I don't want the police or the council or GMCA to be able to silence what I have to say. I am the voice of these victims who have been silenced, who are being criminalised. There is another review coming out within, I would say, the next 2 months, the Baird review, and that will look at what's been happening in the last year of victims being treated inhumanely, unlawfully, strip searched in the custody of Greater Manchester Police. We've taken, I think, 8 victims now to be interviewed by the independent review. This is a scandal that keeps on giving. When is somebody going to take it seriously and do something, not just apologize for failures of the past? Get a grip of what is going on now. You just mentioned about, you know, these cases not being investigated. We are dealing with one lady now who has complained about rape and abuse, and she has been silenced by people within the force where she is complaining too. So these are repeating failures, and I could go on about. There's so many strands to it that, you know, I can't cover all of them. But I think that the public need to focus on those things, that this is not a failure of the past, it is the present. my whole reason for speaking today is to try to ensure that it doesn't become a problem of the future as well, that people get a grip. And if that means me calling this out live to, you know, a senior officer who is really reading from a PR script, he needs to speak to people on the ground and really hear what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Maggie, again, thank you so much for everything you've done.